What if the secret to doubling or even 10xing your business revenue wasn't about working harder, but about using smarter strategies and the right tools to create unstoppable leverage? Welcome back to another episode of the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Lonergan, and today we're diving deep into the systems and mindset shifts that can transform how you grow your business. My guest is David Asarnow, the founder of Business Nitrogen, a leader in helping entrepreneurs unlock exponential growth. In this episode, David shares the exact strategies that have helped his clients turn stagnant revenue into massive momentum, from dialing in on your best buyer strategy to harnessing AI in a practical, profit-driven way to create intentional campaigns that get results. Whether you're looking to scale your business, refine your marketing, or simply get more leverage out of the work you're already doing, this conversation is packed with insights you can start applying today. And here's the thing, if you're serious about keeping more of what you make as your revenue grows, it's not just about generating more cash flow. It's about having a tax strategy that works as hard as you do. That's why I want you to visit vitalstrategies.com/tax and start building out your plan today. Because the strategies we're talking about in this episode don't just help you grow, they help you keep more of the wealth you're creating. Stick around to the end of this episode because David shares some actionable steps you can take right now to create momentum in your business. Let's dive in. David Asarnow, thank you for joining us here today. I'm excited about this conversation. I think the number one thing that businesses need is revenue, and you help people with that. We often find that entrepreneurs are really good at a particular thing, but that, revenue generation drives business, and without it, it doesn't go anywhere. So thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I think of the problems that the entrepreneur has, whether they've been in business for a while or just getting started. Growth can slow or it hits a ceiling. New revenue feels increasingly difficult to unlock despite strong product or service. Then they also are feeling frustrated or left behind by the AI boom, unsure how to actually use this tool to increase profits without wasting time and money. And then they believe that technology should serve us, not the other way around, and that real innovation should lead to transformation, not complexity and distraction. So I'm excited for you to help us sort of dig through how we can leverage AI in our revenue generation efforts. So thanks for joining us here today. This is going to be fun.
My pleasure. And there's a lot to unpack in that intro.
Yeah. So if it's okay, can we start off with a little bit of your background? How did you get, you've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I'd like to just understand your background and then we'll get in from there.
I would say I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. My grandfather inspired me when I was 3 years old. They sold everything, their house, their furniture, and then they moved to a new state and acquired this small little business. And when I was 4 years old, they flew me down, and I remember it was National Airlines and it had the two sons. I don't know why I remember that. And I spent a couple months with my grandparents as a 4-year-old, and he would take me, as I grew up, he used to call it detailing doctors. But I was his eye candy. Instead of bringing a dog along, he brought a 4-year-old grandkid, and he was able to get into any doctor's office with me. And I grew up in his business. I watched him start from scratch to building a building. And I remember he bought this giant building, or at least I remembered it being giant, including a warehouse. And I said, "Why did you buy such a big building?" When I was about 6, 7 years old. And he said, "Because one day I'm going to fill this and then we're going to expand." And he did. He became the largest orthotics and prosthetics manufacturer in the Southeast at one time. And so when you look at building a business, growing a business, my story started with, I learned something. In order to grow a business, you either A, need to get customers, B, get customers to buy more, and C, get them to buy more often. And that's from Jay Abraham. And it doesn't matter in today, the digital age, in the AI age, it hasn't changed. What happened is I had an opportunity. My grandfather told me to he offered me his business and I turned him down. And he said, "Well, you need to go get some experience then." There's a reason. He was sick with cancer and he said, "I only ask that you take care of your grandmother for the rest of her life." And I couldn't take that on as a 17-year-old. That was a big responsibility. Yeah. And so he said, when you're out of college, he ended up surviving that. And he said, "Go get a job with a big company, get some experience." And I got some experience in sales. In the first 2 years, I became top 3 salesperson out of a couple hundred. And I got another opportunity, and that opportunity was with a family-owned 50-year-old business at 68 million in revenue. And they gave me an opportunity to start a new division for the company when I was in my late 20s. And I was able to grow a $45 million division over the next 5 years. I then got an opportunity to raise capital, acquire the first all digital portrait studio chain from a private equity company, and then franchise it. And
Wow.
so we grew that into an 8-figure business in 5 years. And then I was like, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? I just turned 40 and I
Yeah.
wanted to speak. Now, that was hard doing on my own. I ended up getting an opportunity with Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes at Business Breakthroughs International. And in 90 days, I became their top closing speaker. And I say closing because we'd speak for free. We only got paid if we sold coaching, consulting, mentorship, or their ultimate business mastery.
Yeah.
And so it's through that I started realizing what I'm really good at is hearing a pain challenge problem someone's having in their business, connecting the dots to and having a solution right there on the spot. My mind works quickly that way. And
Hmm.
I started doing consulting on the side, and by accident, my business started. I helped someone, gave some advice, and they referred me business. They referred me more business. They referred me more business, and Business Nitrogen was launched. And then when Chet passed away, I stepped away and just focused my efforts here.
Hmm. I love this. And I love the backstory. I want to hear about the success you're having, because you've got the revenue multiplier matrix, which, is a proven path to 2 to 10x growth. And I hear that and I'm like, gosh, that sounds a little bit like clickbait, right? Like, man, that's super interesting, but how am I going to take my revenue up by those figures? And I'm excited to dig into that. I don't know where we should start there, but I think that sounds like a fascinating place for us to go to really like dig into and understand how Business Nitrogen helps entrepreneurs along that path.
Well, what happened when I was in the franchise, something I discovered, I was doing funnels before funnels were funnels, and I didn't even know it,
Hmm.
right? We weren't
Yeah.
calling them marketing funnels. During the franchise company, we had highly intelligent automation. One of my friends was the founder of the company. He sold it. And I created videos back then. Back in 2008, people weren't doing videos. People weren't
Hmm.
communicating that way, but we were. And so we had a video on the website. We would have emails with videos embedded. And when someone was watching the video, it would notify our salespeople that XYZ person is watching your video now. I would tell
Wow.
them, wait 5 to 10 minutes, call that person. If you're on a call, wait 5 to 10 minutes, call them. And they would say, oh my gosh, you won't believe this. I was watching a video from your founder. No way. Right.
Yeah.
And so that was marketing funnels. That's marketing
Hmm.
automation at its finest.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And why today we have so many people trying to do that. We have information overload. So today it is more important than ever to really share your origin story. Why do you do what you do? Because there's a lot of people, for instance, that may do tax planning or
Hmm.
strategy.
Yep.
How can you separate yourself from everyone else? When people know why you're doing it, why you care, what your origin story is, why you are there to serve them, that is a value multiplier. It almost it's like positioning you is that new opportunity, positioning you as the blue ocean. So they're like, I just know I know that person now. I like that person and I trust what they're saying. I know they're there for the right reasons. And that's how you get people raising their hands and moving forward. So many times when I'm working with people and we may be doing some videos and we may be creating a webinar or a challenge or just automated marketing for their website or even an AI agent today, we can talk about that in a little
Hmm.
bit. I
Yeah.
say, I ask people so often, I said, I could tell you can almost read. It's like when you're speaking, you're creating an energy and it's translated and goes out there. And I asked someone, what were you thinking when you were recording that? And they're like, why? I said, because it comes across that you were thinking this, were they going, how many people are going to buy? And they're like, how did you know that? I said, here's the thing. Okay. When I get up in front of a room and speak, I say, God, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. So please let the words enter my mind, hit my heart, and come out of my mouth so I can serve the people that need to be served with whatever I need to serve them with. I don't know what that's going to be. And I tell people, just come with that attitude. Come with a place of service. Come with a place of gratitude that you get the opportunity to do this. And guess what? The right people are going to show up. Now you're saying, well, how does that have to do with marketing funnels? It does, and it comes with everything. It's like, it's who you are and how you're coming across. It changes how you lead your company, how you lead your team, and the right clients are going. I hate to say that the multiplier is, how do you create leverage? You've got to understand the message and be able to communicate that message. We communicate that message. There's ways to get it in front of people in a different way, so the right people raise their hand. And as long as you do the right things in order to build rapport, show the value, show that through testimonials and what other clients say, you'll have more and more people raising their hand and moving forward. And then the revenue will grow because of that. And then they're really going to need you, because they're like, oh gosh, I don't want to pay all these taxes. Other ways that I can minimize by doing things differently.
Right. Yeah, I love this. And I love this concept of leverage. And if it's okay, I'd like you to talk a little bit more about that, because I love what you're saying around, we're getting the right message out there. We're providing the right offer. Now we just have to we got to use leverage to get that in front of the right people. And I'm curious, I'll call it the best buyer, right? Like, we got to get that in front of the best buyer so they can take action, and we've got a good fit there. So how do we leverage that marketing message in a way that is going to connect with people?
It's funny that you say best buyer, because I have a website. We were creating a product called Best Buyer AI. And that's actually, it's funny you bring up best buyer. Today, more than ever, we use a best buyer strategy. I call it the Target 25. And it goes back to when I was building that $45 million division for that company. I had 25 prospects. That's it. Because I was going after $1 billion companies. There's not many $1 billion companies that needed custom plastic packaging. And so I used a very targeted outreach approach. I remember reading something when I was in my early 20s from Harvey Mackay. He was the envelope guy. And he wrote,
was it lumpy mail?
It was lumpy mail. And it was talking about mailing a sneaker to someone, saying, now that I have my foot in your door. Right. I remember it. So here's what happened. I was calling McDonald's, and I called them for 6 months and no one returned my call. So I put a sneaker in a FedEx box, and I used a little bit of Harvey Mackay combined with Anthony Piranello. He wrote a book called Selling to Vito that my dad called me to read when I was 22 years old. Right. And it said, so Ken, now that I have my foot in your door, may I please have 5 minutes of your time? I'll be calling on Friday at 8 a.m. to talk about how I can help McDonald's increase your brand recognition and profitability. David Asarnow, which is a bold claim, but I believe that claim because I knew that I had something that McDonald's didn't have. Well, I called on Friday, and the receptionist, when I said, hey, my name's David Asarnow, I'm calling for my appointment with Ken. Meanwhile, my heart's beating, hoping that it's going to work. And she laughed. She said, you're the sneaker guy. And I said, yes. And she put me through to Ken. I won't go into that whole story now unless you want to. What I can tell you is that turned into a meeting in person. That meeting in person lasted 2.5 hours. It got me in a training with their entire product development committee. And 6 weeks after that, it turned into a $1.6 million contract. Right. Yeah. So when you talk about best buyer today, there are so many ways to do it differently. With clients, if you have that kind of very targeted approach, I'm doing it with a client right now. Her goal was, okay, I want to double my business. Well, if we can identify 10 clients, each and every one of those could probably get you 50 to 100% revenue. Is that better than focusing in on 1,000 others? In less than a year, she's now got agreements with 2 of them. Right. So it doesn't take many to create that that growth. I have someone that invited me to be on their podcast. It's funny. We did a cold Best Buyer AI. It was cold email outreach, but it's ultra personalized about them, what's different. And they responded, listen, you got through my filter. I delete most of these, but I'm not the right person. My partner is, here's his email. Good luck. He's harder than me.
Yeah.
We got through. That became a personalized email. And they invited me on their podcast to talk about these kind of strategies because they're like, you got through to us. No one gets through to us, right?
Yeah.
So when you talk about Best Buyer, the most important thing that you need to know is who you can serve, and understand that why you can serve them better than anyone else. And if you have a company and you're out there, you need to believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that you're better than anyone else. Because if you don't believe that, there's no reason why anyone should work with you. So if you know how you can serve someone better than anyone else, you can use email today. You can use AI to do outreach, believe it or not. You can use direct lumpy mail. By the way, lumpy mail, direct mail works better than it ever has because people are lazy. They don't use anything like that.
Yeah. This is great. So I want to highlight what you're talking about here. I'm hearing we have to have a Best Buyer profile. We have to know who that person is. And then we have to have a way to get their attention. And that attention could be through a podcast. It could be lumpy mail. It could be an email. It could be lots of different ways, but we're trying to get the attention of that Best Buyer. Now, one thing that you mentioned was leveraging AI to do that. Now, I'm for outreach. You have my attention on this one. I'm very interested in AI in the future and how we're going to use it. I saw this video of a guy that he's a salesperson, and he called this number and was talking to an AI agent that was selling him and answering his questions. And he was like blown away by it. And it was fascinating. And I assume it was real, but I'm curious how you're seeing AI in the future of marketing and how it can help us really lean into these outreach opportunities that, may be time intensive for us as individuals. So can you walk us through AI and what the future looks like there?
It's here. It's now. I also have an AI company. I think I mentioned to you offline, and that came about because when you drive leads to someone, if they're not able to book the appointment, they don't follow up on the lead. But here's a fact. If you answer a lead live, you're 500 times more likely to book that appointment than if you even follow up 10 minutes later, because we have short attention spans and they've got on to something else. People don't answer the phones from people they don't know the numbers for. So how do you go about doing that? One, you can do cold campaigns. You can do direct mail to people and give them a QR code and a reason to engage. If you understand your buyer's persona and you know who your best buyer is, you can actually, with intentionality, create campaigns. AI, you can train it. You can train it to have empathy. You can train it to listen. You can train it to build rapport with people. And that goes to understanding human psychology. If you think about it, there's people who are saying, well, this stuff is great, but then we look at the work that comes out and it's average. And some people are harnessing 160 IQ. Why? Because they give it a different set of instructions. This morning, I have a good friend of mine. In fact, the friend who referred me that first piece of business 15 years ago, I went over his house this morning and he wanted some help with AI. He's an author speaker and he was doing something. And he said, I've got this custom GPT, but it doesn't always do what I want. And it sounds and I said, let me see it. And he showed me. And I said, okay, let's work on giving you a perfect prompt for you. And we spent 45 minutes. I have a framework that I utilize. It's a 5-step framework, but 45 minutes to create a prompt. Okay. And he's like, wow, I can actually follow this process for anything. I'm like, yes. So why do some people get good results and others average? Because when you spend that much time in developing exactly what you want, the great thing about AI is it can do anything that you want. but you have to be explicit in the instructions. So many times when we have asked people on our team to do something and they don't do it, we say, well, they weren't paying attention. We may want to ask, did we give them good instructions? How did we communicate?
Yeah.
And the great thing with AI, if we're not good communicators, we can see very clearly because of the result. If we're really good at communicating what we want and how we want it to think, how we want it to behave, what we want the outcome to look like, we get a very good result.
Yeah. I am so interested in this because there's a few things you brought up that I want to touch base on. I think about the book by Robert Cialdini, Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion. And I think about in that book, he talks about the click whir mechanism. And what he means is like when we do these certain things, our brain goes on autopilot. Or when somebody interacts with us a certain way, our brain goes on autopilot and we just sort of respond almost in a very known outcome, right? Like if I do this thing, that thing will happen. And it's kind of scary from a marketing, negotiation, sales perspective, like the influence that is out there. And we probably all think, oh, it won't happen to me, but it does. And he proves it. And so I think about that book and I think about the things you're talking about with AI and how we can sort of marry these things together, right? Like if I get the AI to leverage those principles of psychology and influence, I think I can create a pretty powerful tool. Now, I think the thing you also said that I'm like, I don't know how to do that is spending 45 minutes getting the prompt correct. And so, David, this is all really fascinating. In light of all of those things we just talked about on the influence side, marrying those to AI, I'm very curious about your AI business because you just talked about the 45 minutes it took to create that prompt. Like that sounds amazing to me, but is also outside of the realm of things that I understand or know how to do. Can you walk us through how we get plugged into the structure that you outlined that allows us to do that?
Sure. I'm more than happy to walk through it now if you think it'd be valuable.
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful.
So since I have it on my laptop right here in front of me, since we just worked on it this morning, and I did a 90. So here's the thing. I have an AI company. We do AI consulting, AI strategy. We'll map out all the different ways that you can create leverage in your business. I'll give you an example. A client of mine, and then I'll go through the prompt. A client of mine had never used AI before. They had a problem with first lead generation, first communicating their message. We fixed that. Then they're like, well, how do I get more people to see this? We talked about the target 25, the best buyer strategy. I'm so glad you brought that up because today you need to lead with who's your best buyer so you can communicate with them. He had this software that he could identify all of his dream clients. He's a lawyer, so you can see cases that were going on that he could interject himself in. And I said, I don't have time for this. Great. Let's hire a VA. Then we said, okay, how can AI do this? Well, you can actually have ChatGPT create an agent that will log into the software, follow the instructions, find what you want, and then put it in a spreadsheet for you. So guess what? You want to ask, how do you make that happen? AI is great because as long as you know what's possible, you can really create anything. You can create a lot of leverage. Now, when we look at reverse engineering mastery or having a prompt, and the most I spent on one prompt before I even hit submit was an hour and a half. Okay. But people say people are using AI are going brain dead. You know why? They're like, write me a script, write me an email, write me a landing page. If you actually looked at the power of it and said, I've got an opportunity to clone myself. In fact, I've got an opportunity to clone myself with someone who thinks at the level or higher than I can think. It's going to make me better and challenge me to think differently. All of a sudden you can do a heck of a lot more. And so that begins with, I call it becoming, when I'm speaking and training and doing live talks, like I'm speaking at a conference in the beginning of September, where I'll have a 90-minute basic introduction. And then day 2, it's going to be a 2-hour workshop for those who want to go deeper. There'll be a few hundred people there, right? So number 1 is roll. Okay. And I'm saying, when I put it into the prompt, I'm saying roll, : you are, you got to tell them who they are, how they've got to think, how they've got to operate. Okay. Number 2, and obviously you want to go deeper, we can get on one-on-one. Number 2 is context. Okay. Here's what I'm trying to do. You're this, here's who I am. Here's what I'm trying to do, and here's where I'm having challenges with it.
Yep.
Okay.
Love
Number
it.
3, command. You got to begin with the end in mind. Okay. Okay. This is what I want. This is the result that I want to create. And when I can create that result, this is what it's going to look like. And I want, I'll even do it like, make it so clear that a 5-year-old would understand it. Even though you're speaking at a PhD level, I need to
Mm-hmm.
understand whatever it is. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
can use this for so many different things. And then
Yep.
the format. This is how I want you to present whatever it is to me. Now, here is the secret sauce. You ready?
Yep.
Refinement. Before you do anything, and most people just would type all this and put submit, this is where it becomes great and it becomes authentically you. Is before generating the answer, ask me 3 powerful diagnostic questions, one at a time, to clarify exactly what success I'm aiming to decode and where I may be stuck in achieving it. Well, that was for this prompt, but you get the idea. It's refinement.
Yeah.
And it's asking
Yep.
the powerful questions, asking those powerful questions one at a time.
If this episode is hitting home and you're serious about scaling your revenue, then you also need to make sure you're keeping more of what you earn. That's where smart tax strategy comes in. Vitalstrategies.com/tax will help you build a proactive plan to reduce your tax burden, free up more cash flow, and put your money to work building long-term wealth. Because here's the truth. Growing your business without a strategy for what happens to those profits is like filling a bucket with holes. Don't wait until the tax season comes to find out how much you could have saved. Visit vitalstrategies.com/tax today to start building a plan that helps you grow smarter, not just bigger. No, I think this is fantastic because if we have to think about AI for a second and what it's doing, it's hallucinating, right? Like it's combining all of these things to come up with an answer. And so we have to take this hallucination and narrow it down to a specific set of prompts like you're talking about. And I think the thing that we start to narrow that hallucination when we're like, hey, ask me one question at a time, or 3 questions at a time, or whatever the thing is, to like anything that you're confused about. So yes,
The other thing
go
we
ahead.
did when I was helping my friend this morning, I said, you have your book, you have all your videos, all your keynotes. We want to take those and put them in the transcripts because part of it is I only want you to formulate information based upon what I'm providing you. I don't want you going out on the web. I don't want you doing this. You only can use. So these are extra things that you can do. So I'm like, okay, this morning, what do you have? What can you use? So yes, does AI hallucinate? Absolutely. And we have to figure out ways in its own RAG or its own unit. When you do a custom GPT, it gives you an opportunity to control a little bit more on what it's doing and how it's doing it.
Yeah, this is fantastic. And one last little thing that I'm curious your thoughts on. I've started asking it not to guess. Like, I need you to know the answer and cite your sources. Because there's times where it's like, it's giving me an answer and I'm like, I don't know if that's correct or not. And I have to go do research to make sure chat's giving me something correct. And that's been a useful.
Yeah. And you put that in your command. And part of the command or what you're going to do, you cite all your sources. Everything that you give me that's based upon fact, I need to know where you got that from.
Yeah, this is great. Now, I know we were talking marketing, we took a little AI tour, and now I'm thinking back to just where you bring a ton of value. You've got a lot of experience on the high ticket sales side of things. And I think that's who you, I think, can really drive revenue with, is somebody that like has a high ticket offer.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, if I've got a nice offering that, is somewhere between $5,000 and $50,000 or $5,000 and $100,000, something along those lines. How do you go about, getting that target 25, getting in front of those people, getting those, leads converted to sales? Like, I know that's a big question, but I think our listeners fall into that category. They've got high ticket sales and they're looking to make these things happen.
Multiple ways. Believe it or not, we have people that hire us to create these Target 25 campaigns, thinking through every bidding component and messaging exactly how to execute it. And then I'd have to sometimes do some coaching on the sales outreach side on the follow-up, because you still got to pick up the phone and connect with people. And the reason that this works better than ever is most people like to hide behind ads. So number one. Number two, if you know that your client, your ideal dream client is searching, if they're searching for tax strategy, entrepreneur tax strategy, they're like, hey, how do I set up a family office? Guess what? We have something that we've launched using AI called Lead X-Ray. We are virtually intercepting someone's Google or Bing or ChatGPT or Gemini keyword search, tying it through enrichment AI. We can append that to the person who's searching, and we get their name, their email, their phone number, their address, and we can automate a direct mail postcard within minutes, or actually hours, within hours of the search, because you could see when they searched and which keyword they were searching. We have it tied into a mail house that you can mail a postcard, you can mail a package, you can mail anything to them. Then at the same time, you take that data automatically, you set it up into a custom audience targeting them using Meta, and you can have a video that's speaking exactly to that person. Hey, you're watching this. I have a feeling that you're an entrepreneur and you're looking for tax strategy. See, by the way, all what you asked for, I'm just showing you as an example, but Best Buyer, you can use it through AI. You can use old school methods. What works best is when you have a complete strategy, knowing who you want to serve, how you can serve them better than anyone else, and then architecting and engineering that process that will automate it for you. So now you're only talking to people who are interested, that are raising their hands. So that's one of the things you can do today. And we're doing.
Yeah, I love this. And so questions about, because my brain is I'm about to short circuit because you just gave me a bunch of amazing ideas. And I'm like, David, how do I go execute on all of that, right? Where do I start? It sounds like too much. Do I start with some direct mail? Do I test that and see how it works, fine tune it? Do I start over here on the digital side? Like I'm trying to figure out, and I'm sure you'd be a great resource.
I'm going to share something that I tell people all the time unless you're willing to see it through and follow it with excellence, don't even start. Because your ability for this to work, you've got to have a plan. I'll give you an example. Well, Bob Proctor, I was listening to a Bob Proctor, a friend of mine told me about Bob Proctor. Once he passed away, they launched out like his best of on Audible, and I was hiking and I listened to it. And Bob told the story and I was like, oh my gosh, that's where I know this from. And so Bob was talking about every week, when he was in life insurance sales, he would call the CEO of this company. And then on week 53, when they didn't return his call, he didn't call. And the receptionist or secretary for this executive called and said, so-and-so wanted to make sure you're all right because he didn't get a message from you today. And Bob went in, that was his in. They set the appointment and he became a client, and he had to sell executive insurance and key man insurance and everything. Well, I'm telling you that story because until I listened to that, I'm like, where did I get what I do? So I often tell people, if you're going to do this, you need to set a 16 to 18 week plan on what you're going to do. Here's the direct mail I'm going to mail in week 1. Here's the follow-up phone mail I'm going to call, or the phone call I'm going to make. If I get their voicemail, it's like, hey, this is David Asarnow. I'm calling you as I told you I would. I know this is a voicemail, but if you'd reached me live, this is what you would have heard. Or I reach you live, this is what I would have heard. And then you leave the voicemail to them. And by the way, you can reach me at this number. And if I don't hear from you, I will be calling you back the exact same time next Monday at 5:19 p.m. And so guess what you do?
Call it 5:19.
You do it again. And this is from Bob Proctor. I now know that where I actually heard this Listening, I'm like, now I know where I learned this from.
Hmm.
This works. You know why? What do people wish their own sales team would do?
That.
They wish that they would follow
Uh,
up. They wish that
mhm.
they would do what they
Right.
say. They wish that they didn't just go for
Mm.
the lowest hanging fruit and then let all the leads that they've invested money into go by the wayside. So that's
Yeah.
why the best buyer, I'm going to go right back to it. The best buyer
Hmm.
program works if you create with intentionality the entire program and campaign on how you're going to do it, how you're going to do the outreach. The great news is you can create that on your own, saying, here's who I want to serve. Here's who I can serve better than anyone else. And this is who I want to do business with. Or we can use something like a lead X-ray to find the people that are raising their hand and automate a lot of
Hmm.
that through AIs. Like we've got an AI funnel that when you're doing ads like that, when people raise their hand, it is designed to get that buyer intent, getting them raising their hand, getting them chatting with the AI agent. We call it our triage sequence because within 72 hours of someone opting in and raising their hand, if we can't get them to take the action, they're probably not going to. And the reason is we
Yeah.
send over 28 messages, a combination of email, conversational text that you can talk to an AI agent, all designed to book the appointment.
Hmm. Yeah. And this is so interesting. And one of the things that I love about what you're saying is I think there's a level, I think we've been conditioned in the United States for drive-through breakthrough. Like, I want the 5-minute abs, right? And so when something doesn't work on the first phone call, we're like, I didn't answer the thing, like dang it. But I heard this analogy from a marketer that I like, and they said, you have to you can't bury the seed and then like dig it up every day and see if it's growing, right? You got to water the thing and you got to stick to the plan. And we'll start to bear fruit, but it's going to take a minute. And we have to like keep doing the thing over and over again. And we can't just take the low hanging fruit, like you said. Like we have to show up, keep putting in the work. And I think that there's a little bit of that's entrepreneurism and business owner in general is, I have to do the hard thing. And we have a saying around, our house. It's like we do hard things, right?
Yeah.
Relationships are hard, business is hard, having good health is hard. All of the stuff that really matters at the end of the day takes some work. And so I think the same is true in our marketing and sales efforts. Like we got to put in the work and stick to it, and then we'll start to see the results. So I don't know if there's any comments on that, but I wanted to like take that key piece of data that you gave us there and be like, look, we've got 16 to 18 weeks minimum that we need to engage in this process, and then we can start to reassess because then we'll have some good
Or you
information.
just got to do it. I mean, T.R. Vecker, I remember reading Secrets of the Millionaire Mind and going to his
Hmm.
3-day event. And they talked
Hmm.
about roots and fruits, and everyone wants the fruit, but they don't realize that you have to plant the tree, water the tree, fertilize the tree in order to get these magnificent fruit. And that's what you just
Yeah.
said. We've got to do that in our business.
Yes. And there's a name. I love T. Harvecker. He was the first person to give me a money management system that wasn't a budget that I was like, I can get down with that. And so I think that came out of the Millionaire Mind Intensive or something
That's where I
along those
went
lines.
to.
So
I went that.
yeah.
And actually my first speaker training was T.R. Vecker, Train the Trainer.
Yeah. I love it. Trip down memory lane. That's good stuff. Yeah, I think I had it on CD. I was listening to some of T's stuff on on CD back in the day, driving cross country. But all right, this is fantastic. I love all these pieces. We've covered a lot of ground. What else do we need to be talking about when it comes to generating more revenue, growing and scaling our businesses to really, you know, I would say have the impact that we're excited about and we believe the marketplace needs?
Here's what I want people, especially if you
Hmm.
have a high ticket offer, is understanding that customer indoctrination sequence. How do you build relationship? What kind of information can you do to serve them? I read somewhere a long time ago, if you're willing to give your best value up front, they'll wonder once they pay you, what are they going to receive? And so many people look at the opposite. I'm not giving that away until they buy from me. And so if you look from that psychology of serving and adding value and giving it out there, like some of the best YouTube, they're giving their stuff out there for free. Once you sign up for their
Hmm.
program, you're really not getting anything different except you get access to them and the ability to communicate. And so give a lot of value, put the systems in place for those who are raising their hand to capture that and then to educate and inform. So that way, those who are ready to take that next level do it. And then the other thing is if they're not ready, most people just put them onto the newsletter list. I always say if it's a no, it means not now. It doesn't mean no. And so what are you willing to do to engineer that process to add value? Another thing, I'll give you an example. A guy I became friends with, I met him in a mastermind and we were talking. Commonality is back then our favorite movie was the same movie. And so he sent me a CD. This is when we could put CDs in our car. And it was a CD of him interviewing someone on a podcast. And it said, Dave, based upon a conversation, I really thought you would like this. So I listened to it in my car. Then a couple of weeks later, he sent me another one. Hey, this is my wife talking about what it's being married to an entrepreneur. I thought you'd get a laugh out of this. And your wife would probably relate. Anyway, he invited me to his birthday party. His mastermind members were there. And I said, what's this mastermind thing that everyone's talking about? And he said to me, don't worry about that. Have fun at the party. We can talk next week if you want. And I joined his mastermind. Right. So this stuff works if you do it with intentionality and know why you're doing what you're doing. So begin with the end in mind. And what outcome do you want? Where do you want your business to grow to? And then you can engineer all the different steps along the way.
David, I feel like I need to sit down and catch my breath. This has been just incredible. Just so much quality business life information coming my way that it's hard to take it all in. This is definitely going to be something that I'm listening to a few times. And I think we're probably going to have to set up a time to talk just because there's so many things that you're talking about here that we're doing some of it okay in our business, but it's man, we could really take this to the next level if we started applying some of these principles. And, I agree with you. Where I see, we give a ton of our information away for free. The problem is most of our entrepreneur clients are too busy to go do it on their own. So we do it for them and we vet all the sources and we're bringing them the information and they're just to the decision-making point versus the execution and having to, do all those things. And so I think that's where the value comes is it's not necessarily the how-to, it's the, hold my hand and walk me through the process.
And as an entrepreneur,
get the outcome.
I don't have time. I may want to do it. I may have good intentions to do it, but I'm probably not going to do it unless someone does it for me.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. This has been fantastic. So I would like to, businessnitrogen.com is your website. So much good stuff in there. Where should people go? If somebody's ready to dig deeper into understanding more about you and all the good work you're doing, what's a good place for them to go next?
They can go to businessnitrogen.com. They can go to davidasarnow.com or just hit me up on Real David Asarnow on Instagram. I actually see my own still to this day.
I love it.
Although my daughter helps me a lot with it, I actually do read my messages.
Yeah. Wonderful. We'll have links to all of that in the show notes. Again, your website has all sorts of great information on it. And this has been wonderful. And when I think about, the stakes here, right? If we don't adapt, if we don't lean into AI, we don't lean into our marketing and revenue generation, we get left behind. And business is hard enough the way it is with the changing landscape with technology. We've got to adjust to that. And, I think about implementing your systems and your processes and unlocking that exponential revenue growth. We get to reclaim time, create more business, create more enterprise value. That's exciting stuff. So I do appreciate you sharing all of this today. I think this has been fantastic.
Awesome. My pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast. I hope you found real value in today's conversation and that it gave you ideas you can take back into your business right away. If you did, I'd love for you to share this episode with someone who could use those insights, another entrepreneur, a colleague, or a friend who's ready to take their growth to the next level. And don't forget, if you're ready to start building out a tax strategy that keeps more of your hard-earned wealth working for you, visit vitalstrategies.com/tax. It's the first step towards putting a smart, proactive plan in place. And remember, you're a vital entrepreneur. You're vital because you're the backbone of our economy, creating opportunities, driving growth, making an impact. You're vital to your family, creating an abundance in every aspect of life. And you're vital to me because you're committed to growing your wealth, leading with purpose, and creating something truly great. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for being a part of this incredible community of vital entrepreneurs. I appreciate you, and I look forward to having you back here next week on the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast, where we help entrepreneurs minimize their taxes, master wealth, and optimize their lives.